Have you heard about Flavas, the short-lived, hip-hop themed fashion doll line by Mattel? In this video, we will look into the brief history of the Flavas dolls, particularly the circumstances that led to their creation and their ultimate demise. But before we dive into the history of Flavas, I'd like to hear from you. If you have an idea for a future Have You Heard doll history video, please leave a comment below and make sure to subscribe. Heading into the 2000s, Mattel was noticing declining sales for their Barbie dolls and other products. Attributing this decline to the rise of child-friendly technology products, Mattel would make significant investments into the technology space, through Mattel Interactive and their acquisition of the Learning Company. However, these investments yielded disappointing earnings results which prompted investors to pressure Mattel's CEO at the time, Jill Barrett, to resign. Former Kraft Foods CEO, Robert Eckert would assume the role of CEO at Mattel after Barrett's departure. Meanwhile, as Eckert began restructuring Mattel, a new competitor for the Barbie doll would emerge.
Passion for fashion, passion for fashion, passion for fashion.
In 2001, MGA Entertainment would release Bratz, a diverse line of 10-inch dolls, marketed as the girls with a passion for fashion. Bratz dolls were a stark contrast to the Barbie doll, with their stylized proportions and iconic pouty lips. The dolls were aligned with popular fashion trends, but also celebrated each character's individuality. As part of the brand's emphasis on fashion, each Bratz doll came with 2 sets of highly detailed outfits and shoes that could be mixed and matched for a wide variety of looks. The Bratz dolls proved to be a big hit within their first few years alone. According to The New Yorker, MGA reportedly sold $97 million worth of Bratz dolls in 2001. Through the Bratz dolls, MGA was able to capture an elusive group of consumers that Mattel thought was swept away by the technology craze, the tween market of 8 to 12-year-old girls. While Mattel tried to attract this demographic with electronic dolls, such as the Diva Stars dolls, it was not enough to get tweens to buy their products. MGA, on the other hand, decided to go back to the basics and focus on their dolls' style. In fact, their success with the Bratz line could be attributed to 2 major factors. The Bratz dolls were diverse and their outfits were an effortless combination of popular styles, such as streetwear. Mattel was starting to feel threatened by their new competitor, and sought out ways to have their products catch up. They would release 2 fashion doll lines to compete with the Bratz, with both lines having urban themes. The first of the 2 lines was the Mycene range of dolls. Released in the fall of 2002, the Mycene dolls were a spin-off of the Barbie line, where Barbie and her friends, Madison and Chelsea, were depicted as affluent teens living in New York City. The Mycene dolls had a striking resemblance to the Bratz dolls, with their large heads, big eyes, pouty lips, and chunky shoes, although they had Barbie doll bodies. As a contrast to the uptown Mycene dolls, Mattel would capitalize on the popularity of hip-hop music when designing their other fashion doll line to compete against the Bratz. This line would be called Flavas, which, according to Alonzo Westbrook's Hip-Hoptionary, the dictionary of hip-hop terminology, means personal flavor or style. Mattel would use this definition in their official press release for the dolls. The Flavas line was initially supposed to have a 12-month planning and production period with a spring 2004 release, but it was fast-tracked to production within 3 months after Mattel's CEO, Robert Eckert, saw prototypes of the dolls. According to Toy Directory, Eckert was focused on introducing shorter development schedules to streamline Mattel's toy production so that products could reach the market faster. Matt Bousquet, then president of Mattel Brands Unit, told the designers to make the dolls more hip-hop than the prototypes. He wanted the designers to make the dolls authentic as possible and as quickly as possible. Flavas was designed by a 4-person team, supervised by Dominique Brown, a then 29-year-old designer who grew up in the Los Angeles and Houston hip-hop scenes. Julia Jensen, a spokesperson for Mattel, justified Brown's role as a consultant for the line by stating that he was incredibly true to hip-hop culture and that Mattel's designers at the time did not understand the authenticity in hip-hop. Brown noted that his inspiration for the doll's aesthetic came from his youth, but also from reading hip-hop magazines, observing youth fashion trends, and also taking inspiration from celebrities, such as Missy Elliott, Beyoncé, Jennifer Lopez, LL Cool J, and Will Smith. The Flavas design team would use these influences to create dolls that reflected hip-hop fashion of the time. Editor's note: the boxes of the Street Flavas dolls features prototype images of Liam and Trey, while the female dolls in this image look similar to their released versions. Prototype Liam has the same face mold as Trey and has a purple beanie. Prototype Trey has a Kangol-inspired bucket hat and some facial hair. These prototypes are seemingly included in the animations for the Flavas commercials, as the Trey animation has a similar bucket hat to the prototype.
What's your flavor? Tell me what's your flavor? What's your flavor? Tell me what's your flavor?
My flavor is always me, 'cause flavor's your individuality.
In July 2003, Mattel would release the Flavas dolls, a diverse set of dolls with street style and sport variants. The first wave of dolls featured a crew of 4 female dolls, Happy D, Peebo, Connie Brown, and Tico, along with 2 male dolls, Liam and Trey. The dolls would retail for about $14. In addition to having a variety of skin tones, hair colors, and hair textures, the female Flavas dolls came in different heights. Happy D and Connie Brown had petite bodies, Peebo had a taller body, and Tico had an average height. Unlike Barbie, the Flavas dolls all had flat feet. The male Flavas dolls, Liam and Trey, featured flocked hair. Certain variants of Trey and Liam, like the sport versions, featured facial hair. Both male and female Flavas dolls had 10 points of articulation, including the standard head, shoulders, legs, and bend and snap knee articulation of the time. The dolls also had elbow joints, a chest joint, and swiveling legs for more dynamic posing. Each Flavas doll box could be transformed into a doll stand, which allowed the dolls to be posed among a graffiti backdrop. Mattel anticipated that the dolls' articulation and special displays would not only increase their playability but also their collectability for their intended tween audience. Additionally, the designers knew that in order to compete with the Bratz, they needed to create trendy, detailed fashions for the Flavas. Each doll included multiple fashion pieces, such as baggy jeans, tracksuits, crop tops, jerseys, Adidas-inspired sneakers, bags and hats. The dolls had chains with a medallion of their first initial or of other symbols. The male dolls infamously had sagging shorts with a faux boxer detail. First wave dolls also include art decals, such as flames, sports logos and graffiti, that could be applied to the doll's clothes with an included applicator. In addition to the street and sport dolls, Mattel would also produce the street trod car and 2 bike date motorcycle sets for the Flavas line. Liam and Happy D were included with the red motorcycle set, while Trey and Connie Brown were included with the purple motorcycle set. The street rod car was a 2-seater magenta hatchback which featured heart decals around the hood and doors. As evidenced by the boombox accessory that was included with each first wave doll, it was clear that music was a major influence on the Flavas line. Julia Jensen would note in a Mattel press release that this line was meant for a young generation of girls who are really taking their cues from music, and that hip-hop is the standout music style that kids are really into right now. To tie into the hip-hop music scene, Mattel would use the song What's Your Flavor by British singer Craig David for the doll's ad campaign, specifically its refrain. Many would point out that the Flavas dolls resembled popular music artists of the time, such as Eminem, Missy Elliott, and Christina Aguilera. Mattel, in fact, would sponsor the summer leg of Aguilera's 2003 stripped tour, as promotion for the Flavas dolls. According to the Wall Street Journal, Mattel gave out Flavas-themed hats, wristbands and decals during the concerts. In the European market, Mattel would appoint British girl group Mystique as ambassadors for the line. Despite Mattel's efforts to make the line a reflection of pop culture of the time, the Flavas dolls were met with a negative response at its launch. Raquel Wilson, then editor of the hip-hop zine Verbalisms, stated that the dolls completely misrepresent hip-hop culture and that the word flavor is no longer commonly used. Kyra Kyles, a contributor to the Chicago Tribune, thought the dolls pandered to the most unimaginative stereotypes about hip-hop and multicultural societies. She also believed that the rub-on tattoo-like decals, impossibly tight mini-skirts and ghetto blasters were embarrassing attempts to encapsulate what hip-hop means. Even toy industry analysts, such as Sean McGowan, commented that the Flavas looked like hip-hop as designed by committee. The general impression was that the dolls felt like stereotypes or outdated caricatures. Parents were particularly uncomfortable with the image that the Flavas dolls were portraying, due to stigmas associated with hip-hop music. Although Bratz dolls were met with similar criticisms of being bad influences on children, the dolls were still able to pull impressive sales figures. Mattel would still be hopeful about the Flavas dolls' sales, especially with the holiday season coming up. They would release a second wave of Flavas dolls with two variants, Denim and Diamonds and Party. This wave featured all 6 members of the Flavas crew, and much like the first wave, each doll came with 2 sets of outfits and art decals. The female Denim and Diamonds Flavas dolls had a doll-sized Walkman CD player and CDs, while the male dolls included graffitied skateboards. All of the dolls had a flip phone accessory. As expressed by the line name, each doll included denim fashion pieces with embellishments. Each doll also sported different hair colors from the previous wave. The party range had the Flavas dolls dressed for a karaoke party. Each doll included a karaoke music machine accessory and 2 miniature CDs. By the holiday season, retailers, such as Toys R Us, were providing buy one get one discounts for the Flavas dolls. Mattel, according to the Los Angeles Times, said that the discount was a planned promotion and not an attempt to clear out poor sellers. However, the company also acknowledged that the Flavas dolls have been slow to catch on. Mattel would release one last wave of Flavas before its cancellation. This wave would be slightly different from previous waves, as this time there was only one variant of the dolls, the Choice Awards Flavas dolls. Capturing trends from music awards shows of the time, the Choice Awards Flavas dolls came decked out with fashions that were red carpet ready, such as faux fur coats. Each doll came with 2 outfits: an award plaque, a VIP pass, a hairpiece, and styling accessories in a case. With the hairpiece, the dolls could change from their awards show look to their after-party look. Some of these dolls came with a music CD, as part of a promotion. One major change in this line was the omission of Keone Brown, who was instead replaced by a new character, Tawny. Tawny had a lighter complexion than Keone Brown. The reason for replacing the Keone Brown doll was uncertain, but it likely could be attributed to the fact that the doll was not marketed in certain territories. In the French commercials for the Flavas dolls, there are disclaimers at the bottom mentioning that certain versions of Keone Brown are not available. It was possible that Mattel decided that a lighter complexioned African American character like Tawny would be more marketable than the darker skinned Cleone Brown, a common issue many toy companies had at the time regarding African American dolls. Throughout the Flavas dolls run, Mattel would also release fashion packs. They would market a set of crew jackets for the Flavas dolls, corresponding to each doll. The backs of these jackets featured the character's name graffitied on the back. Other fashion packs featured outfits from previous waves of the line. By the start of 2004, Mattel realized that the Flavas dolls were failing to attract tween audiences. Robert Eckert would state in a February 2004 conference call to analysts that every year we have products that work well and products that don't, and simply said, Flavas was one of those that didn't work well. Within a year alone, the Flavas dolls ceased production and the dolls remained in bargain bins of stores. Mattel decided to shift its focus back to the Barbie brand, and try to, in Eckert's words, rebuild relevance with girls over the age of 5. In 2004, they would release the Fashion Fever and Carly Girl Barbie dolls, in an attempt to recapture tween audiences that were interested in Bratz dolls. Barbie would now be depicted as a cool, fun, and fashionable teen. And much like with the Bratz dolls, the fashion aspect of the doll would be at the forefront. Mattel would also continue to produce the Mycene line of Barbie dolls. Had the production cycle of the Flavas dolls not been rushed, they would have been released around this time. Instead, they were cancelled after only 3 waves of releases. There were several factors that can be attributed to the failure of the Flavas dolls, in addition to their rushed production. None of the design team members, other than Dominique Brown, were familiar with hip-hop culture. They were reliant on the experiences of Brown and what they have observed in the media to design these dolls. The lack of multiple perspectives on the dolls led to dolls that consumers perceived to be outdated and stereotypical. Had these dolls been designed today, in a time of heightened cultural awareness, Mattel would likely bring in more consultants, designers, and historians from the hip-hop community to truly achieve the authenticity that Matt Bazquet wanted for this line. Mattel was desperate to keep their foothold in the fashion doll market, but unfortunately the Flavas line could not give the company an edge over the upstart MGA Entertainment. While Flavas was a detailed and diverse set of dolls that included elements that collectors today would enjoy, they simply could not compare to the effortless uniqueness of the Bratz dolls, in the eyes of young consumers. The Flavas dolls can be seen as a byproduct of a company in crisis, a line whose flavor could have been enhanced with more research and time without corporate interference.